We were leaving Baghdad by American Black Hawk helicopter. The pilot flew at rooftop level. There was a danger we'd be hit by small arms fire. But fly any higher and the insurgents see you coming and hit you with rockets. Our destination, an American forward operating base where we hoped to learn the truth about the Iraq War. It is only 50 miles to Baquba, to the northeast of Baghdad. In the months after the invasion, reporters could make this journey by taxi. Now you have to do it in a helicopter, hopping from base to base. 15 miles from Baquba, we made an emergency stop. A sandstorm was approaching, and this isn't a part of the world in which to lose your way. What's it like flying over Baquba?
Certain parts of there which we don't fly over typically. There's part of that called RPG Alley in that area, where they've had a lot of RPGs fired at aircraft.
Why would you rate Baquba in sort of scale of badness, you know, between sort of...
Honestly, if 10 is the worst, I'd say Baquba is probably an 8 to 9.
8 to 9.
Yeah.
The sandstorm arrived. Suddenly, we were attacked. A rocket landed over there, and the camp is under attack, and we're being ordered to keep under cover, which is where I suppose we better go. It was 2 days before the storm lifted. There is now, believe it or not, a mechanical problem with our helicopter, and so we're looking at the possibility of taking a ground convoy in the final leg of our journey to Baquba. Everyone had to carry a gun, but they made an exception for us. It's not an ideal way to travel. There's risk of bombs and ambushes along the way, but we've got no option. The main threat came from roadside bombs, improvised explosive devices, or IEDs. How big is the danger of an IED in this journey?
It's high. I'd rate it from moderate to high. Within the past 2 days we've been here, we've heard at least 2 IEDs going off on convoys going between here and Baquba.
Lookouts searched for anything the insurgents might use to hide an IED. Dead animals, bags of rubbish, freshly dug earth. Foreign suicide bombers linked to Al-Qaeda also attack convoys. The gunners aim to stop them.
I was asking about the suicide bombers in vehicles. How you can tell, I mean, they're all the same. I mean, there are so many different vehicles. And he's saying actually you've got to wait and see the look of the guy.
The insurgents around here are Sunnis, angry that American-imposed democracy has allowed Shiites to dominate the Baghdad government. An Iraqi army checkpoint was the first sign that we were approaching safety. We'd reached Forward Operating Base Warhorse, headquarters for 4,000 American soldiers policing Diyala province and its capital, Baquba. We'd been lucky. There had been no attack. But we'd lost a mirror in a collision with a truck. Fortunately for the truck owner, the gunner had decided that he was simply a bad driver, not a suicide bomber. All day we'd been in 50-degree heat. Now we were taken to air-conditioned luxury.
Great.
Well, we took off on a Thursday night. It's a Wednesday night. We got to Baquba. We've been travelling for 6 days.
That night we visited the operations room. All hell was breaking loose. Insurgents had just attacked a convoy. They called in one of the F-16 bombers that endlessly circle Iraq's night skies. Events unfolded live on a screen in front of us, transmitted by an unmanned aircraft filming from above.
Okay, more than 400, sir. So we're good to drop? Yes, sir. Okay, stand by. Roger, do I understand we're clear to drop her? Roger, acknowledge. Yeah, clear to drop. Somebody stand by with GBU 12. All right, drop it.
That hurt.
Gonna feel that in the morning.
You know, it's going to be a long night for these guys. Because they're going to be out there the rest of the night, most likely. Certainly, what time is it now? It's 10, so they'll be out there at least 4 or 5 more hours, I'm sure of it.
As you turn an attack on you into opportunity to attack them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Apache helicopters rocketed the palm groves in front of the advancing troops. The insurgents had been quiet for weeks. The ambush was a worrying development. The Americans now stepped up their patrols around the provincial capital, Bakuba. On this mission, we were accompanied by IPs, Iraqi policemen.
A few weeks ago, we had found two 130 millimeter mortar rounds buried in a pile of hay on the side of the road. So there were just two piles of hay. Looked kind of suspicious, so I had the IPs go check out and make sure that there was nothing in there. Would I do it myself? Yes. But when there are IPs around or Iraqi army, we try to get them to do as much as we can rather than relying on us to do everything.
They told me Bakuba was under the control of the insurgents a year ago. Now only this Sunni suburb, Buritz, remained a problem. Intelligence reports suggested the local town council and its mayor were giving the insurgents a haven. The Americans closed the area for house-to-house searches.
Hurry up.
This is the major in charge of this convoy, this patrol. He's talking.
We need you to keep an eye open for foreigners, okay? Where are these strange people now that came here for the attacks? Where did they go?
الناس الغربة اللي جو ينفذوا هاي الشغلة وين راحوا؟
يعني هو ما حد يعرف.
No one knows.
No one knows them. Okay.
The purpose of the mission was to get information, but Major Joe Lazari from the Civil Affairs Unit was more interested in giving it.
You need to take responsibility. If you have ideas or problems, you must bring them to the council. If you don't like the council, then you should run for the council. If you don't trust them, then the next time you have elections, you can vote for new representatives. That's how democracy works.
Every answer is go to the city council. You can vote them out of office if you don't like. This wonderful belief in American democracy.
The Americans had intelligence that villagers near the palm groves were being forced to shelter insurgents. They searched the houses without reward. Then they tried to make friends.
The majority of the Iraqi people that we come in contact with want us to be here. They're good. They want democracy. They want a better way of life for their children. Yeah. And missions like this, when they get out and they get to spend time with the Iraqis, good Iraqis that aren't shooting at them, is a good thing for the soldiers to see.
All right, let's go hug some babies.
It paid off. A villager gave information about an arms cache in the palm groves.
Bloody hell, how do I get over here?
Iraqi soldiers had gone ahead, taking the lead in the search. The Americans are determined to hand over more and more of these operations to the IA, the Iraqi army. The tip-off was correct. So, Colonel,
Got
found some more.
Good, bring them over.
Colonel, tell me about what we found here.
The primary use for these types of ammunition is for IEDs, improvised explosive devices. They take them, they'll put them in singly or in pairs. They wire them together, wrap them with a detonation cord, put some kind of triggering device on it, whether that be a radio-controlled remote device or a wire command detonated device, and they will wait for someone to come by, drive down a stretch of road, and they will detonate.
Well, the reason we came to your village this morning is that we had some reports that some Alibabas from Bariz have come down and they're seeking safe haven down in the villages along the Arbar Road.
Mukhtar, the village headman, said he'd known nothing of the cache. He added that if he did see insurgents, the mobile phone service was so hopeless he couldn't call anyone. Major Lazari moved into action.
In America, we pay for the telephone service. We have choices for our telephone system, so that puts you know, as the consumer in charge. That's what you have to get to is capitalism, and it gives you choices. If I don't like my cell phone company, I switch.
We're now heading over to Baritz to see the site of a bombing which killed an Iraqi soldier today.
The killing dismayed the Americans. It was further evidence that despite all the searches, there were still insurgents operating in the suburb.
They either placed it inside a trash bag so that it would look like garbage inside this long grass, or there were piles of this algae that has been raked out of the canal laying here, and they very quickly covered it with that.
And there's a piece of shrapnel. God, this is a nasty piece of...
This is a piece of an artillery round, similar to what we saw this morning in the cache. This is what shrapnel is when artillery explodes.
Colonel Salazar, US commander in Bakuba, was there.
But the action you've taken this afternoon as a result of that is you've closed down the town again.
Mm-hmm. The cost, of course, is that, and this is what we've got to share with the people, is you can see where this IED took place, and you can see it's right in front of a home and a neighborhood, and like many communities around the world, nothing goes on without the locals knowing about it. Somebody knew that this IED was here, and that's the point we make with these types of operations, that the people have got to take responsibility for security in their area.
That night, to drive home the message, Colonel Salazar ordered his guns to shell the Buritz palm groves. This piece of machinery here is making the people of Buritz very grumpy indeed, as it would you if you had 155mm artillery shells landing in your back garden at 15-minute intervals throughout the night. For George Bush, this is the front line in his war against terror, but the troops on the ground were fighting two wars, one against foreign terrorists, another against local Sunni insurgents. Brigade Intelligence Officer Major Dean Wolin fully understood the distinction.
The terrorists are religious extremists for the most part. They want something akin to what we saw in Afghanistan under the Taliban, which was a government friendly to their objectives, friendly to their operations, a place where they could have sanctuary and an operational base, for lack of a better term. The insurgents want to go back to the way it was. The terrorists, regardless of where they target us, it doesn't matter if there's civilians around or not. The insurgents, though, they target us with the same weapons, but they do it in places and in ways that it's going to minimize the potential for civilian casualties, because they understand, just like any insurgency, that their basis for power, their legitimacy is through popular support. If they dislocate themselves from that popular support, if they start killing the very people that they're trying to gain support from, then they're harming themselves, and they know that.
The insurgents, he told me, won't be defeated by military means alone.
We have got to get the the Sunnis, the disenfranchised Sunnis, former regime elements, all of the people who are really driving, have an interest in driving the insurgency and maintaining it, we have got to get them away from the military side and into the political process. They have legitimate issues. They may not be something that everyone agrees with. They may not be, trying to prosecute them the right way, and they may not speak to all Iraqis. However, they are a group of people that, and it's a rather large group of people within Iraq that, cannot be ignored.
And indeed, the Americans took advantage of their regular meeting with the local sheikhs to complain to the Sunnis about the latest attacks. It's an open secret that without the sheikh's acquiescence, the insurgents would find it hard to operate. The Americans are earnestly trying to impose modern democracy on Iraq, but the fact is that the traditional structures of power and influence remain. The sheikhs, this is the parallel power structure in Iraq. It's not democratic, and the Americans don't feel nearly as comfortable with it as they do with their governors and their elected councils. The sheikhs were asking, "What have you done for us?" In their opinion, not much. Sheikh Ahmed was saying that the Americans had been here 2 years, and though he thanked them for getting rid of Saddam, he said they hadn't done the simplest things for him: electricity, water, not even his well. And he said if they could sort out his well, then he would might see his way to helping them with the insurgents.
There's a direct connection between the security and the projects, and you know that. Everybody wants me to finish the road, but nobody wants to help me defend the contractors. So I can get more contractors repair not only that road, but the roads I'm trying to build here in Canaan, the wells I'm trying to build here in Canaan, and everything else.
The shelling of the palm groves around Biarritz continued. One morning, just after the final artillery round exploded, we joined an Iraqi-American patrol as it headed into the area. Joint operations bring a higher than usual risk of attack. It's hard to keep them secret because insurgents have infiltrated the Iraqi army. But on this patrol, the Iraqi army, the IA, had its own informer, someone who said that he knew the whereabouts of an insurgent arms dump. When did you stop shelling here?
At 05.
So about an hour ago you stopped shelling. So it's unlike, yeah.
That's why our link up was at 5:30. It gives 30-minute buffer in there.
Right. And any danger of, I felt pretty exposed going up there. Any danger of IEDs, yeah?
Not IEDs back in here, but a lot of times people, the insurgents, even farmers, after they work their land, will spend the night out here.
Yeah, mind you, they've been shelled overnight, so that would have been a noisy night for them.
Well, what we're hoping is through the shelling is, it's one of these things, do you feel lucky? Do you want to go spend the night in the palm grove? Because you don't know.
And what chance that your informant is leading you to a booby trap?
Oh, that's why we're going to let the IA go in and clear first. And then we'll go in.
We closed on where the arms were meant to be hidden. The effects of the shelling were all around us. Imagine this travelling at you at 500 feet a second. There you are. Very sharp. Horrible. The informer showed where to dig. He was a frightened man.
When they know somebody is working or helping the Americans to kill the terrorists, they kind of go to kill him and his family too.
Are you worried if Iraqi soldiers see you too? You want them not to know who you are?
That's true. Because, it is 95% they are good men, maybe 5% or 10%. Maybe there are spies belongs to the other bad men, especially the IPs. So you can't trust anybody right now in the Iraqi government.
The informer gave no clues about his motives. The top of a huge plastic container emerged from the dust. They searched for booby traps, and then an Iraqi officer gingerly prized off the lid.
Whoa. Lots of explosives, okay. Come on over here, James.
This was a major find. Everything from armor-piercing rockets to the components needed for roadside bombs. Many of these weapons were looted by the insurgents from Saddam's army bases in the weeks after the invasion.
That's a rocket-propelled grenade, is it?
Yeah.
That will crash through the armor plating of a Humvee and explode inside, yeah?
It could.
The triumph was short-lived. Insurgents attacked an Iraqi army checkpoint. 9 soldiers were dead. We headed for the scene. The dead and wounded had been removed. A 1,000-strong Iraqi battalion had now lost around 200 men thanks to death, injury and desertion in only 2 months. There were recriminations. The officer in charge had been mysteriously absent. Colonel Abdullah, the battalion commander, told me what he'd learnt.
The terrorists put 2 vehicles with the 10-guy terrorist with machine gun and Doshka 12.7 there. And also on the side, the same number, 2 trucks and with machine gun and Doshka like machine gun. 1 vehicle here and 1 vehicle here, and the terrorists start to shoot. And I have 9 soldiers killed through this accident and 2 wounded.
There are other threats to order. Sunni and Shia Iraqis are jockeying for power in case it comes to civil war. At the command center where the Americans liaise with the Iraqis, I met the chief of police, Adel Mulan. He's a former Saddam general and a Sunni, yet the Americans trusted him. Later, Colonel Salazar, the US commander, met the police chief for tea. He announced the Shiite governor wanted the chief sacked. Democracy meant there was little the Americans could do about it.
We greatly appreciate everything you've done for security here in Diyala. I don't know that this is a final decision, but unfortunately I believe that the outcome is on the border, in which case we're greatly going to miss you as well.
He said he wasn't surprised. The governor was acting under orders from Iran. Many Sunnis believe the Shia-dominated government in Baghdad takes secret orders from Shiite Iran. Sunnis fear the Shia are placing their people in key posts in case of civil war. We joined Operation Rat's Nest, a joint Iraqi-American sweep to find Sunni insurgents and those sheltering them. The hope is that such operations will disrupt the insurgency and force the Sunnis to turn to politics.
They've picked up most of the people they want, which shows that there must have been a real element of surprise and proper security, which is always a big issue where the Iraqi army is concerned.
The risk is that operations like this will deepen the rift between the Sunnis and the Shia-dominated government. For all their commitment to peace and democracy, American troops may effectively be taking sides in what could turn into a civil war.
Long season on Iraq.